Welcome back to the Human Nexus podcast. My name is Andrew Brazis. I'm a business and marketing consultant and private chef.
Welcome back. My name is Miss Laura Machiste. I am a YouTube Tower reader, energy coach, and holistic massage therapist. And in this episode, we are talking about alchemy and alchemizing energy and kind of all things energy in terms of what we come up with,
Mhm.
but mostly alchemizing
Like
and teaching.
mostly, yeah, sorry.
Yeah, like teach no, you're good. Like teaching yourself or like learning how to understand the energy, like stuff like that as well.
Yeah. And turning hopefully negative energy into positive momentum for everybody
Right.
and ourselves. Yeah.
Yeah, well,
Do
that's like
you,
my first point of that, like
yeah.
the alchemization. Like when
Mhm.
people say to focus on good things, they don't say that for no reason. Because if we
Yeah.
can manifest good experiences, then we can also manifest bad experiences. It just kind of
Mhm.
is more subconsciously or more out of like fear. And that's where I feel like alchemizing energy comes into play, like really strong of like knowing how to do that.
Yeah. And being in that like that space. The way I can think of to describe it is if you are sad and you're only thinking sad thoughts,
Mhm.
to be, it's really hard to feel happy. So like, how do
Right.
you like move through the emotion of like, let's say grief, but like know that like happiness is the goal and just like stay like vibrate at that frequency, I guess.
Well, I like to go right to like a lesson. I'll say,
Hmm.
okay, well, what is this situation trying to teach me? Because that's the
Hmm.
easiest way for me to look at it in a positive light when I am either frustrated or angry or sad. I
Hmm.
try to just go to, okay, what could this possibly be trying to help me in my evolution with? And usually giving myself that question right away helps me alchemize the energy to more positive quicker. And it
Yeah.
took me a bit to understand to do that. I didn't do that at first. I just kind of like wallowed in it.
Hmm. So you kind of like spiraled and then
Right.
like,
And
yeah. Hmm.
I was like, okay, well, if we can spiral down, then we should be able to spiral ourselves up.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
that's what I tried to say to myself, okay, you could spiral down and think of all the horrible things that happen in this situation, or you could spiral up and try to think about the things that you could take from this sadness or from this grief, especially when I lost family members and
Hmm.
friends and stuff like that. Same thing. I'm like, all right, well, instead of focusing on what happened, what did I learn from this person? How will I
Yeah.
keep this person alive through me? And I feel like
Yeah.
that's also a way to alchemize the grief.
Yeah, absolutely. So you're kind of you're not dwelling and staying in it, you're just moving through it, really.
Yeah.
Mhm. Which is
I
really
think
important.
right. And I think identifying it is really important too. Because a
Sure.
lot of the times we like to say, like, oh, no, it's just a funk or it's just a mood or I'm not feeling any type of way. And
Mhm.
I think identifying it and saying, like, okay, yeah, no, I am sad or I am
Yeah.
feeling anxious.
Or
And
like
then
ignoring it
going,
entirely would also not be good.
mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I can't. I'm a Pisces, so I feel everything. It's like
Yeah.
unignorable. It just like comes in waves, and that's why to my own self destruction and destruction of other people, I taught myself how to really not spiral down because misery loves company. There's no way
Mhm.
that you don't take anybody with you
Yeah.
if you're around people, at least.
Yeah. No, that's absolutely true. And in the process of like, what do you have that stops you? Like, do you have any, like, if you're spiraling down and I don't know, you know what I mean? Like, is there something that you check yourself with consistently in those moments?
I do a little bit of a mirror talk. Like I'll look myself
Mhm.
in the mirror. Like if you've ever
Mhm.
been bawling your eyes out and then looked yourself in the mirror, humbling moment.
Yeah.
Humbling moment. I'll do some mirror talk. I'll look myself in the mirror. I'll say something. I'll tell myself
Mhm.
like, like you're amazing. And I'm like bawling my eyes out. I'm like, you're great. Don't worry.
Yeah.
um, so I do like a lot of mirror methods. And I just try to make it to a point where I don't turn it into a mood. Because when I was
Mm.
younger, before I didn't really know about energy, is I would be in a mood about something for weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks. And then I kind of realized that there's more harm than good, and
Yeah.
to figure out how to not stay there. And that goes hand in hand with asking yourself what you're feeling and identifying,
Yeah.
like, all right, I'm feeling anxious. All right, well, why are you anxious? I'm
Hmm.
anxious because of this. It's like, okay, do we have control over this situation? Do we have control over this? Do we have control over that person? And then you're going to answer yourself back. And I feel like that's like the first step to alchemizing the energy, is to identify what the energy even is.
Yeah. Yeah. And then once you can do that, are you, I mean, this might be harder for like the normal person, but with like when you get around good energy, you kind of know, like how do you put yourself in those places? Like, is it people? Is it music? Like, I think dancing is one of your things, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
like how do
I'll
you,
do yeah, I'll do like movement. I know this might not be the best word to use, but I do
Mhm.
use this word when I have this type of conversation with someone who's like paying me for energy work and stuff like that.
Mhm.
I tell people, if you got to be conceited for a little bit, then be conceited. I rather you have hyper self love than being a little bit too low. Like, I'd
Yeah, that's
rather
good.
you talk yourself up and be a little cocky
Hmm.
than destroy yourself.
Yeah.
So I kind of
And
give
there's
that.
like, there's nothing bad with that. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, if you're not
You and
hurting anyone and you're
yeah,
not, yeah, then if it's
yeah.
helpful, it's helpful.
What about like written? Do you do anything there?
Mm-mm,
No, nothing.
no,
That's kind of
I
like
I'm
my thing. Yeah,
I'm
is
a little
written.
careful when I'm low energy writing down stuff,
Really?
because I've seen
Like,
things I've written down and high energy come really
mm,
fast. So I get a little bit
oh,
weary
interesting.
with the
Yeah.
low. Mm.
So how do you get the negative things out? Like for okay, for example, for me, if I'm like just like really in a dark place, I'll write about it.
Hmm.
But not in a way to like I'm like wanting these things to come true, but just like processing externally. But then I support that with like gratitude statements
Right.
and like what am I doing right now that's like trying to solve the problem or like getting out of that funk or energy or whatever you want to call it.
Hmm.
Um, yeah.
Yeah, I definitely, now that you said the written, there was a time where I didn't write down like what I was feeling, but I wrote
Mhm.
an apology letter to myself, and I
Mhm.
apologized to myself for allowing or staying in a situation or staying in an experience.
Yeah.
So that's as far as I've gone to writing, and it helped. It alchemized the energy. Once I like spoke to myself in that way and wrote it down and said like, and
Mhm.
actually like writing it out and reading it. Actually, I think I typed it. I think it was on a computer, and I just like typed and then reading it back, I was like, ew, like this is.
Like it
Like, what
didn't
did you
make you
do to
feel
this
good?
girl? And
Oh,
it was
oh, I see.
it brought it into third person, to where it
Yeah.
was me and myself talking. But when I actually like wrote it down and read it, I was like, yeah, you do owe this person an apology, because
Mhm.
why would you stay in something like that? And it
Yeah.
lifted me up.
Yeah. That's good. I mean, that's
Apology letter to yourself is very smart.
like that's alchemizing, you
Mm-hmm.
know? Yeah. Which is amazing. Um,
Because most
have
people
you
are like hard on themselves for that. Most people are
Mhm.
like, you should have known better. Like, what's wrong with
Yeah.
you? And that's how I kind of feel like how you lower your vibe. So I kind of took it and being like, all right, it's okay. You have to give yourself grace and like
Yeah,
kind of say,
absolutely.
sorry. Mm-hmm.
Mhm. And I feel like people don't do it enough. Like you said, like people are really hard on themselves. And if you don't give yourself grace, like I feel like you're just like adding to the spiral
Right.
immensely.
Mm-hmm.
And then, I mean, you might not ever get out of that because you're not acknowledging it. So
Right.
that's really good.
Yeah. I took energy and like shifting energy and alchemizing a lot more serious when I really started to understand the law of attraction
Mhm.
and that we are mirrors to the reality and stuff like that. And then I took it a little bit more, well, a lot more seriously. And I'm like, okay, well, I can't stay down for too long because then I'm creating from that space.
Yeah.
So I feel like having that awareness could also be the first step as well as the whole shifting moment and asking
Mhm.
yourself questions. Is there a way that you have done you feel like is like helpful?
It depends on the scenario, writing things out for sure. Like if they're like really deep, dark. Um, Tarot too kind of like helps me a lot just to like pull myself out and give me like a different, I don't know, direction or like knowing, I don't know, like possible outcomes. I was like, oh,
Mm-hmm.
I'm really good at catastrophizing. But then if I'm like, if I have a scenario and I like do a tarot spread, and I'm like, oh, well, it's actually a minor arcana and it's like not that big of a deal and I'm gonna get through it. Or if it's like, I don't know, like the worst cards possible, it's like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, well, if that's true, I go through worst case scenario and say, is like this life or death? Like, am I gonna get through this? And it's always yes. So
Right.
it's, yeah. Um, I also, when I'm like really, when I was like super, super depressed, I would just say, I'm okay. I'm okay. And I would just repeat that over and over and over again. And that's like my mirror version, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
I have that during anxiety. I'll tell myself, you're okay, you're okay, you're okay, you're okay,
yeah,
you're okay, like over and over and over.
yeah. And then like eventually it's like you trick your mind and be like, oh yeah, I'm good. Like
Mm-hmm.
it's not like that clear, um, but I've noticed, like you talked about creating in like a lower energy. Like I've noticed for myself, like if I'm in a certain, I don't know, energy feeling, it's really hard for me to do things in an authentic way. Like I get like really lazy, or like I'll be really avoidant. And then for that, this is kind of funny, but I'll just listen to like it's usually in the morning. It's like
Mm-hmm.
if it happens, it almost always happens like right out of bed. And then I'll just put on like some motivational, like just random motivational on YouTube. And
Right.
then that gets me like baseline again.
Yeah.
And
I
I,
mean, with that, it's easier too because we have our phones, you
yeah,
know?
right. Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's like this feeling of like it, like, so for example, in the morning I wake up and I'm like, man, I just don't, like, I'm not in my power. I don't have any capacity to do anything. I just woke up. I don't want to take on the day. But I have shit to do. So I'll
Hmm.
just like, I have a 3 to 4 minute walk to the gym. So I'll just pop in a motivational thing. And by the time I get to there, I'm like, oh yeah, I'm back. This
Hmm.
is easy. And I don't even know if I really like listen to the words per se. It's just like
You
somebody
know,
talking
I'll
about
keep going
action.
on.
Yeah, it's
It's
just like,
interesting you
go
said
ahead.
that. No, it's interesting you say that because there's a card in here, and I'm going to find it right now, that actually says manifest through movement or something
Mhm.
like that, something in terms of what you said. And that's so interesting that you're walking to the gym in
Yeah, walking's
connection
really
to
big.
removing it from your energy. And don't you ever find that sometimes where you knew what to do, but you didn't really know what to do? You were
Mhm.
just like, let me go on a walk. And then all of a sudden I don't know, you connect to an energy worker and they're like, you got to go on walks. And you're like, oh,
Mhm.
I was already doing that. You ever find that happen?
Yeah. And that's really, it's really like important, like the movement part, but
Mm-hmm.
stopping it as soon as possible. Like if I know I'm spiraling, like you can't
Right.
stay there. So like, I don't know, I have action plans for that, which is usually self-reflection and then journaling a little bit and then movement
Mm-hmm.
of some sort. But
Yeah. I also will vent sometimes. Like I'll have like a certain handful of people that I call them randomly throughout
yeah.
a time. It's probably because I have something to say or need to like get out. I feel like deciphering it with other people and other perspectives, if you have that,
Hmm.
is
Yeah.
helpful. That's why I tell people on my channel, I'm like, just comment your story down below. Even if it's not me that's responding back to it, someone will talk to you in
Yeah, the
in the
community
comment
aspect's
section.
huge. Like if you
Right.
have
So I
it to
feel like
leverage
that's
it.
really helpful
Yeah.
to just
No,
get it
that's
out there.
yeah, it like definitely I don't know, like I see it as like having this negative energy, and if you can just move it out and around, I think it naturally turns positive. I mean,
Hmm.
unless you're like, I don't know, trying to make it bad, but
Yeah. And I feel like it's not something to where, like, obviously tools are helpful and
hmm
stuff like that. But it's not necessarily needed. And I've seen it
hmm
in terms of my clients where they'll sit down in front of me and I can see their facial expression change, and it go from, and I watch their energy shift in
hmm
front of me, and I feel like we minimize the, I guess, power that we have as like just bouncing it
just like
off of another
yeah, just
person.
like
And
natural. Yeah.
yeah, just like what we have around us. And that's where I feel like our souls, I guess, or subconsciously, we kind of already have this knowledge, and figuring out how to do it when it comes around is probably one of the hardest parts for like the personality to, it's like the personality would be like, well, I feel so horrible. What is a walk gonna do? You know?
Yeah. Or it's like I feel so horrible. I can't imagine like moving to like go to like I have to put on my shoes and like maybe get
Right.
dressed and like go outside. Like that's just
Mm-hmm.
but doing that is it's like so much better. The other thing that I do too, if I'm like really down bad, is naps. I'll do like yoga nidra for 15, 20 minutes with
Mm-hmm.
headphones.
Yeah.
And if nothing works, that's like my fail safe. Like every time.
Yeah. I feel like there is difference for people depending on like how you are, but I feel like those same commonality tools of like movement, writing things down, figuring out where you're at, and figuring out like what tools you had to have to get yourself out of the funk is
Mhm.
super important for like not manifesting in the funk.
Well, that was where I was wanting to go next is what is your like how do you view this with manifesting? Because I think they're like hand in hand.
Oh no, yeah, absolutely. Especially when I've seen it the most when I've been in outside
hmm
and around other people. I'll see it in a sense of I'm having a bad day, and it just so happens that I just got cut off like 1,000 times on my way to over here. It's like, okay, it's like you knew I was already having a bad day. I
hmm
mean, is that coincidental? Maybe.
hmm
But I, I feel like just kind of like what you said too about it's a chore even putting your shoes on. But then some days when you're feeling the high vibration, you don't even notice that you put your shoes on already. You just already did. And
Yeah,
I feel like when you're sitting in a negative energy, things, one, feel like more of a chore and an
hmm
obligation that
like
usually
everything's
don't.
heavy.
And time goes slower. So
Yeah,
you will know when you're in a negative, lower vibration if you feel like the day is dragging. I try not to like
true.
manifest or do anything like that on those types of days.
Yeah, it's interesting. And
Yeah.
it's something that I've learned the last couple of years is like I was hyper focused on like getting out of the spiral, but then
Mm-hmm.
like that was kind of it. But what I've learned the last couple of years is focusing on like what is the energetic feeling of like when I just get like a really big sale or like I'm out with my friends and I'm like my vibration's really high. Like what does that feel like? And then when I'm in those like lower places, I'm like, okay, what can I do to like replicate that feeling for me, like energetically? And then once
Mm-hmm.
it's like once I don't know, it's just, it's like super nuanced. But like once I feel that heightened state, I'm like, okay, I'm good. And I just like try to stay there.
Yeah. It's kind of like what Rennie was talking about, like that divine spark. It's kind of like what I
Mhm.
would like kind of call it, if that makes sense. I read this book that I talk about all the time on here, The Untethered Soul. He called it something specific too. Um, and in this is actually where I learned it as well and
Mhm.
like took it as a tool for myself. And then I started to figure out, all right, what gives me that feeling that maybe isn't when I'm out with my friends or if I'm doing this and I'm doing that. And for maybe people watching, when you hear a song and it just like scratches the right part of your brain and you listen to it on repeat all day, that's the feeling. That's
Yeah.
the vibe. It's just manifesting in a different form.
Mhm.
Music hits a different part of the brain, so it just like comes about faster. Um, I kind of want to say that's like the only example I have because all the other things are like a physical material of a manifestation of something. Music, it's circulating and it's around, but
Mhm.
you get that feeling where you just hear this song and you're just like, ah, that's my song, turn it up. And it's like,
Yeah.
you've been
That's
low vibe the whole time till this song came
that's how
on.
I feel like when I eat something. Like when you have a craving for food and you're
Yeah.
just like maybe it's like vanilla ice cream, which is like whatever, but and you like
Mm-hmm.
get it like while you have
Yeah.
the craving, that's like peak. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And what do you do when you taste that food? You probably do a little,
Yeah.
maybe
Yeah.
do a little happy food dance. That's
Yeah.
the feeling. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's like doing that and then figuring out what that feels like and then just trying to notice when you're not in that state, like
Yep.
what can you do to get there? Yeah.
Exactly. That's why I like to give music as an example for a lot of the people that
Mhm.
I work with because I'll just tell them if you're feeling down, put on that song. Like
Yeah.
put on like feel the vibration of what you want to feel. And when you do feel that again, or if you do have a song that maybe you just came about and you're like, "Oh my gosh, I'm listening to this on replay." That is your moment to manifest.
Right. Yeah.
Kind of what I said with the way you feel time. Time doesn't exist if you're playing this song on replay. That
hmm
means it's going in and
that's so
out.
interesting. Yeah.
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 Weird.
That's so
Weird stuff.
interesting.
I pay attention to how the time feels.
Yeah. That's so
And that's when
true.
I
And
know where
then,
I'm at.
yeah. So when time's really slow, you're saying you're to like not, you're really dragging ass for whatever reason.
I
If it's
slow
like
down with
sad
it.
or,
Yeah.
yeah.
Hmm.
Interesting.
And I'll try not to, like, I won't light no candles. I won't journal anything. I'll just kind of do whatever vices are around, either
Mhm.
watch TV or I'll go with the slowness in a sense.
Yeah.
Because have you ever found that, like, you're low vibe, but you do have something to do? And then you're there and you're like, damn, this event will never end.
hmm
Those are
Well,
the
that's the
types
other
of
thing
moments that
too,
I try not to do much with.
is like when you're in that,
Hmm.
I think too, like leaning into it a little bit, which sounds
Yeah, yeah.
counterintuitive, but like sometimes the objective isn't to get out. It's just to like be like grief is like that. Like you can't
Hmm.
power through grief. You kind of just have to like do it
Right.
and be in it and then it's over eventually.
Yeah, exactly. I
Mhm.
feel like, just how everybody has their own different experiences and ways they get through things, that's also very similar to, there are going to be the times where your vibe gets high really fast and you didn't really have to do much and you figured out how to alchemize your energy quick. And then there are other times where it just doesn't feel that easy.
Mhm.
And I feel like the pressure to alchemize the situation to positive makes it a negative.
Ah, yeah, that's true.
Yeah. So I do agree with some of those moments. You just have to just sit in them, put on a movie. I don't
What
know,
about
listen to some stuff.
what about when it's like the for me, my energy is really it's so crazy to say this, but it's really like contingent on the moon cycles. So like
Hmm.
we just had a full moon and usually
Right.
up until full moon, today's the day after, and my energy's like so weird. Like just like productivity wise.
Hmm.
Like the more I pay attention to it, the more I realize like it kind of comes and goes with what's happening astrologically.
Right.
Do you have that same experience?
Um, I wouldn't necessarily say to the moon events, although I do pay attention to them.
Hmm.
But I have experiences to where, say, it's December 20th. And I'm like,
Hmm.
all right, on January 2nd, I'm not going to be there. And I don't know why I'm not going to be there. I just decided on January 2nd, I'm not going. I
Hmm.
kid you not, on that day, I'll have like a weird mood. And I'll be like, oh, thank God I told I backed out of
Yeah,
that 2 weeks ago. I didn't even know that I was going to feel this way. So that's the
dang.
weird stuff that has happened to me. Like it
I'm like
actually
the
happened to
opposite.
me today.
Yeah,
Oh, see, it actually
yeah.
happened to me today where last week I told the other job that I work with, I'm like, I will not be going there with you guys. I will meet you there. And
Hmm.
literally today, I said this last week, and today I was cutting it close to even get there. So I'm like, how did I know this?
Yeah,
How
that's
did I know I was
strange.
going to feel this way? How did I know I was going to have a headache? So maybe not
Interesting.
necessarily the moon stuff, but
Yeah.
there are
Would
certain
you,
times.
yeah, what do you think that is?
It could just be that you're a little bit more sensitive to that type of stuff, where there could be a stronger sense of sensitivity in the way you pick up on energy.
Hmm.
You could have a little bit more of a collective feel where it's not just you, it's others.
Hmm.
And some of the things that have occurred on your end too aren't just you.
Yeah,
It is other people
yeah,
at the, like, and being included at the same time.
yeah,
I feel like I have more solitude moments. But then I'll Google stuff or I'll go on social media and I'll see people are feeling similar and I'm like, oh, okay. Well, maybe
yeah.
I'm having
That's
the
like,
solitude
well, like,
experience.
I mean, I guess we'll get into this next episode, but like talking
Yeah.
about the Mercury retrograde, like I feel like
Mm-hmm.
a lot of people that I know are going through it in their own way.
Right.
Like the ways are kind of different, but so that's kind of insane. But I'm definitely more of like I'll make plans, be like, oh yeah, I'm so hyped to go. And then the
Mm-hmm.
day comes and I'm like, why did I do that? I don't
Right.
want to do this. So I
Mm-hmm.
wish I could preemptively know like if that was an off day or not, because that would save me a lot of
Right.
relationships probably. Yeah.
Right. I don't know why. I don't have a thought with it. I just look
Yeah.
at the day or look at the schedule and I'm like, no, thanks. You won't see me
Yeah.
that day. And then they'll be
That's
like,
so
good thing
good.
you didn't come. This, and this happened. And I was like, perfect.
Dang.
I wasn't
Yeah.
there.
You knew. That's so
Yeah.
crazy.
And this has been my whole life though. Like I've just known random things and I just didn't know why until like either after the fact or something
Mhm.
happened. And that's kind of where I taught myself about energy and the whole alchemizing of it, manifesting of it, and kind of just like following your intuition and what it wants and what it wants to do and where it doesn't want to go.
Yeah. That's really important. The other thing that I do too for alchemizing is I have this I call it a FID, but it's a 5-year dream doc. And I just like
Oh,
planned out I'd started when I was 30. So it's like what the next sorry, not the next 5 years, but like where I'm at when I'm 35 and like what that
oh.
looks like and the accomplishments. And I was just talking about this yesterday with a friend, but like day to day from like 1,000 foot view, and then also like I have like manifestate not manifestations, affirmations on there and like a vision board and all of that. But like talking about alchemizing, like there's like the manifesting part, and then there's like the like middle, like navigating the energy, and then there's like the practical, what does this actually look like? And like how do we get
Hmm.
from point A to point B? And when we get to point B, where is that? And like what do we really want?
Right.
And so if I'm like kind of lost, I'll just go back to that doc. I update it sometimes, but
Hmm.
yeah, that's super helpful.
Yeah, that's awesome that you have that. When you first said it, I envisioned a vision board, and then you
Yeah.
mentioned that afterwards. So
Mhm.
that does make sense in the connection to kind of like just knowing what your goals are, knowing what the position of where you want your energy to be in case your
Yeah.
energy ever is off. That's like a really good reminder. I used to write things in expo marker on my mirror actually,
Mm.
and that was one of the
Okay.
things that I remember. I knew I did something else with the mirror. I just couldn't think of it in the beginning. But that 5 year or that kind of like look back to the planned vibes is definitely a good idea, especially for people who like go through things and they kind of like lose the why that they're doing it,
Hmm. Yeah.
or like, why am I trying? And I
Well,
don't, have you
well,
ever
not
read
only
The
that,
Alchemist, that
I have
book?
not. No, 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 I have not. It's on my list. It's super
Hmm.
popular though.
Yeah.
It's like one of like the most recommended. But having like a target to hit is really important. Like on my sheet, I'm really specific, like how much I'm making in this like this certain revenue stream.
Hmm.
And it's funny because I had not the podcast on there, but like creating a spiritual community like related to the podcast or like a podcast. And then
Hmm.
this is
Yeah, that's
like now I'm
awesome.
here doing it several years later. So
Hmm.
whether it works or not, I don't know. But it's
Yeah.
if that's a case study. Yeah.
But that's another thing too, is that in whatever moment that you decided to do that,
Mhm.
that was hand in hand a manifestation slash an alchemization moment, because it wasn't in front of your face at that moment, but you still believed it. So
Yeah.
you shifted your energy while you were creating that vision board.
Hmm.
And then in turn, the shift of the energy pushed the momentum for whenever it decides it wants to physically manifest for itself. And
Yeah.
that was one of the things in The Alchemist that he spoke about
Hmm.
was, um, if you are part of the purpose, then you won't go anywhere. It'll stay stationary until
Yeah.
it's
That
uh,
makes
it's
sense.
brought about the journey again. There are a couple really good quotes from that book, but one of them is Maktub, the saying that it is written, like it's already written for you, and things like that. That was my favorite one though. Like if it's part of the purpose, it'll come on the journey. Like it
Yeah.
won't, you won't miss it on the journey if it's part of your purpose.
Yeah. Like you can't,
And
there was that, like you can't miss it if it's for you or
right.
something's, yeah, something along those lines.
Hmm.
Yeah.
And that's why I
Which is
feel like
so
people
good.
can make things be for them.
Hmm.
It's just like, what's your intention? Are you making this be for you out of external validation and insecurity, or do you really want to help people? Do you really want to be heard? Do you really feel like what you have to say is needed?
Hmm. Yeah. Understanding, like you were talking about understanding your why and like losing
Hmm.
that and like making sure that you don't lose that is really important. Because I feel like someone who's been in multiple businesses, I think it's really important, like especially like business, if you're doing something and if you're only doing it for the money, which is okay, like people do that every day and they make millions of dollars and it's great.
Hmm.
But like if that's not what you want and you don't have a why, when you hit an obstacle, like you lose all your momentum because you're like, why am I even doing this in the
Absolutely.
first place?
Yep.
So
Absolutely.
so that's like really, really important. Yeah. So when you get thrown off your game, what's your why? Do you have one?
Well, my why is to keep going, because I'm not necessarily sure exactly who decided on a soul level to come back here.
Hmm.
So when I do have those moments of like
Interesting.
negativity, I tell
Yeah.
myself, like, look, you're here for a reason. Maybe
Hmm.
we don't know their why, but we have created our own why. And it usually isn't ever about myself, which may be like a martyr Pisces trait, but it usually is about other people. I'll say, like, all right, my why is because I want to help people, or I
Hmm.
want to do this, or I want to make sure I have that, or am expressing here or helping there. So my why is usually, which I don't know if that's a good why to have now that I'm thinking about it. I
I
mean,
don't
I
think
do have
I
like
don't think
the,
there's like a bad why. Like if you have a
right.
why, it's what it is.
Uh-huh. I do have like the self mode, like self
Mm.
preservation and like wanting to be the best person I could be, but it
Hmm.
usually is connected to, I need to be the best person I could be because I need to help other people, or because I have to, or something like that. So like my why is usually of like a helpful people energy. And then I'll tell myself too, like, especially since I started the massage practice, I get a lot of feedback where people are just like, why haven't I felt this way from a massage before? And that kind of makes me feel good and sad at the same
Hmm.
time, because it makes
Yeah.
me feel like, damn, like, do you guys not feel like cared for at other places? So
Hmm.
actually going through this experience this year has made my why even bigger. Now I'm like,
That's so good.
tarot cards, of readings for people, energy work, and
Mhm.
now I'm hearing that people not feeling cared for and they're paying like $100. They're feeling vulnerable, maybe whatever amount of clothes they have on or don't. And I've only been out there for some odd years doing this practice, so my why has definitely gotten bigger with those types of feedbacks from people.
Yeah, that's really good. And it's important. You really need one. I think
Yeah.
everybody should have a why, personally.
Hmm.
I think it helps a
I
lot.
definitely agree. So
Hmm.
figure out what your why. If you know what your why is, comment it down below and let us know.
Yes, please. And next time we're talking Astro Talks Part 2. So Mercury retrograde. What else?
Mercury retrograde, we could go over some lunations, possibly in the past couple of weeks or months, if anything stood out to us. And also, yeah, Mercury retrograde, the lunations, and some of the bigger planetary shifts that we've had
Mhm.
lately. Um, Pluto moving into Aquarius, some of those collective shifts, going over what we've felt lately and
Oh
also kind
yeah.
of what we've seen
Yep.
as of
Big
late as
stuff.
well. Because we are in two different areas of the country. So
Hmm.
I'm sure you have seen some collective things that I have yet to see, or vice versa.
Yeah. And hopefully with that, people can kind of resonate and we can build some case studies there eventually.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. Cool. Thanks everybody for
Thanks
listening.
for being here. Bye.